Today, we'll discuss a grim yet fascinating topic: natural disasters so powerful they could annihilate not just cities, but all life on the planet. These aren't disaster movie plots, but real threats known to scientists. Comment below with the city you're watching from. It's always interesting to know our audience's geography. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and may your day be peaceful and safe. Now, let's get to the most astonishing facts. First fact: imagine a volcanic eruption so powerful that it changed the climate of the entire Earth. This has happened before. About 74,000 years ago, the Toba volcano in Indonesia exploded with the force of 2,800 cubic kilometers of ejected magma. For comparison, this is thousands of times more than the eruption of Vesuvius that destroyed Pompeii. So much ash and sulfur entered the atmosphere that the planet's temperature dropped by several degrees, and sunlight barely managed to penetrate the dense layers. According to genetic data, the human population at that time was reduced to a few tens of thousands of individuals, a kind of evolutionary bottleneck. Scientists still debate exactly how much this eruption reduced the population, but one thing is clear: the effect was global. When you think about it, it becomes obvious that volcanic power is one of the most real threats to our species. Share in the comments, did you know about the Toba catastrophe before? And don't forget to subscribe and support this video with a like. Thank you for your activity. Second fact: is it possible to imagine that the Earth itself can tear apart? In a sense, yes. Huge tectonic rifts like the East African Rift are gradually stretching continents. But the most terrible threat is hidden in a subduction zone, where one lithospheric plate slides under another. An example is the Cascadia Zone off the coast of North America. Colossal stress is accumulating here. When it breaks, a megathrust earthquake of magnitude 9 or higher will occur, followed by a tsunami tens of meters high. Scientists have calculated that such an event repeats every 300 to 600 years, and the last one happened in 1700. This means that a new one could occur in our lifetime. And if it does, the entire western part of the USA and Canada will be affected, and the waves will even reach Japan. Many residents of the region know about the risk, but few imagine the real scale. Would you like to live by the ocean knowing about such a threat? Write your opinion in the comments. Third fact: in 1908, an explosion thundered over the Siberian taiga with a power equivalent to about 15 megatons of TNT, 1,000 times more than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. This event went down in history as the Tunguska meteor. It flattened over 2,000 square kilometers of forest, felling about 80 million trees. Fortunately, the impact site turned out to be almost uninhabited, otherwise casualties would have numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Scientists still debate: was it an asteroid about 50 meters in diameter or a comet's nucleus? But one thing is clear: if it had fallen on a city, the consequences would have been catastrophic. Today, astronomers track tens of thousands of near-Earth objects, and new ones are detected every year. Yet we lack absolute certainty that a dangerous visitor won't arrive tomorrow. Consider this: a random space rock can change the course of history. Do you believe humanity will manage to create a reliable planetary defense in time? Write your thoughts in the comments. Fact 4: the sun, upon which all life on Earth depends, can also be a source of deadly threat. In 1859, the so-called Carrington event occurred, a gigantic plasma eruption that hit Earth's magnetic field. At the time, telegraph lines were damaged, many devices caught fire, and auroras were observed even in Rome and Cuba. But imagine if something similar happened today. Satellites would fail, power systems would collapse, aviation and navigation would halt. According to NASA estimates, the damage from such a solar superstorm would amount to trillions of dollars, and recovery would take years. History has also seen less powerful but still destructive surges. In 1989, for example, the entire Canadian province of Quebec was without electricity for 9 hours. Scientists are confident. The question isn't whether something like this will happen again, but when. Could the modern world survive several weeks without electricity? Do you think we are ready for such a challenge? Fifth fact. Myth: giant killer waves exist only in sailors' legends. Fact: killer waves or rogue waves are indeed real and have been repeatedly recorded by satellites and ships in recent decades. These giants appear suddenly in the middle of the ocean and can reach heights of over 25 meters, comparable to a 9-story building. Most frighteningly, such waves are not linked to earthquakes or hurricanes. They arise from the complex superposition of ordinary waves. In 1995, the Draupner oil platform in the North Sea recorded the first confirmed rogue wave, almost 26 meters high. Ships encountering them described damage as if after colliding with an iceberg. Today, scientists use radars and models to predict such waves, but a guaranteed prediction is impossible. Share. Have you heard of this phenomenon before or thought it was fiction? Fact 6. The highest temperature recorded on Earth was 56.7 degrees Celsius, 134 Fahrenheit, in Death Valley, USA in 1913. However, more dangerous than thermometer records are the so-called heat domes. These are atmospheric traps where hot air stagnates over a region and doesn't dissipate for weeks. In 2003, such heat in Europe claimed over 70,000 lives. And in the summer of 2021, a dome over Canada and the US caused the village of Lytton to reach 49.6 degrees Celsius, an absolute record for Canada. In such scorching heat, a person without shade and water can die in just a few hours. The body stops cooling, and heat stroke occurs unexpectedly. Climatologists warn that with global warming, extreme heat waves like these will become more frequent and intense. Do you think our cities are ready for such heat if it arrives tomorrow? Seventh fact. In the Japanese language, there is the word tsunami, which literally means harbor wave. It has become an international term, but few consider that for the Japanese, it's not just a word, but part of their cultural code. The first written mentions of tsunamis there date back to the 15th century, and folktales recount stories of fishermen who noticed a strange, rapid retreat of the water and managed to lead villages to the mountains. Following the catastrophic earthquake of 2011, which claimed tens of thousands of lives, a new symbol became entrenched in Japanese culture: tsunami stones. These are ancient boulders with warnings inscribed. Do not build below this mark. They were erected centuries ago by ancestors who survived their own catastrophes, and precisely where people heeded them, the death toll was lower. The words, turned into monuments, remind us that culture can also be a defense system. Would you choose to live right by the ocean, knowing such stories? Fact 8. In the Middle Ages, the most terrible natural disaster was considered the eruption of the Tambora volcano in 1815. Its power was such that the entire year of 1816 went down in history as the year without a summer. In North America and Europe, snow fell even in June, and harvests were ruined by cold and rain. Grain prices increased several-fold, and hunger riots began. However, there were also unexpected cultural consequences. It was precisely on that cold, moonless night at a villa by Lake Geneva that Mary Shelley conceived the plot for the novel Frankenstein, and Byron wrote his dark poems. Today, historians consider Tambora the most powerful eruption in the last few thousand years, surpassing even Toba in destructive scale, but with less fatal consequences for humanity. Think about it. A single eruption can change both climate and literature. Do you think it's a coincidence or a rule that disasters give birth to art? Ninth fact. It seems incredible, but ordinary water can become the most insidious threat. After hurricanes and floods, most victims die not from the destruction itself, but from dirty water. It mixes sewage, oil, chemicals, and animal carcasses. Outbreaks of cholera, dysentery, and typhus after such disasters have been repeatedly recorded. For example, in Bangladesh and Haiti, thousands of people died already after the floods subsided. Doctors call this the second wave of catastrophe. And if one can hide from the fury of the elements in a shelter, then from diseases only with the help of clean water and rapid medical assistance. International organizations have even introduced a rule: the first thing to bring to a disaster zone is not food, but mobile water purification stations. Try to imagine, a glass of clean water in such conditions is worth more than gold. Do you think you could survive a week if the water around you suddenly turned into poison? 10th fact: there are rare phenomena so unusual they seem like legends. One of them is the firestorm. This occurs when a forest fire or an explosion creates its own weather. The air heats up intensely, rises, drawing in oxygen and intensifying the flames. Sometimes, such whirlwinds transform into actual fire tornadoes, up to a kilometer high. In 1945, during the bombings of Dresden, flames consumed entire city blocks precisely because of the firestorm effect. Very recently, in 2018, a similar event was observed in California. A fire vortex lifted a truck weighing over a ton. Scientists warn that as the planet's temperature rises, such phenomena will appear more often, especially in arid regions. Seeing footage of these fire dragons, one understands that nature itself can surpass the most terrifying special effects. Thank you for watching all 10 facts to the end. Support the channel with a subscription, a like, and a comment. It helps develop the project and find even rarer stories for you.